connecting the stories of women in the American South with women in South Africa.
I was interested in reconnecting. And what was really wonderful was that while I was as passionate about reconnecting, so were people in South Africa interested in reconnecting with us. So Sheila's Day was an opportunity for people to come back together.
Telling the stories of black war heroes.
They were men very much like Jackie Robinson, you know, who took a lot in order for others to gain a lot. They were bright men, you know. They were intelligent guys. They were daring. They were adventurous. There were men, all of whom became very successful in business.
Creating new works.
Here's the way it was.
They are like the little leagues to baseball. They're the little leagues of what's going to happen to us in the future, our future in the theater and film and in television.
It's Crossroads, the story of a theater.
This special State of the Arts production is made possible by the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. The State Council on the Arts, supporting artistic excellence in New Jersey since 1966.
It was an old building, abandoned former warehouse, sewing factory. There was a little road out front that eventually became Route 18. And when they were building all of that, we were trying to renovate this building at 320 Memorial Parkway. So it was kind of off to the side. And it was a desolate area, but at the same time, things were happening there. And roads were coming together. And the stage manager back then said, Crossroads. It was not something you had to think about. It was just there. It was right. Because it was about the physical coming together, but it was also about the coming together of spirits, of people from different cultures, different times, generations, genders. It was coming together in many different types of forms and styles. And it was who we already were.
The town of Crossroads, North Carolina, place of my birth.
And I thought the boogeyman wore white sheets.
He made Friday a good Friday, Boboli. That was the first example of slavery.
I'm a frisky young colt. I found the pasture. Oh, I like it here.
You ever see a group of colored people who didn't put the lightest one in charge?
2 foot on your shoulder. Place the bell ring around the left, just like so.
Say what? Say citizens improvise these days. Lord, come back here.
Like my new dress. Won't you be glad to have a baby child, Joe?
The time was the late 1970s. The place, New Brunswick, New Jersey. A mix of college town and old industrial city. 40 minutes by train from New York. Rick Khan and Lee Richardson, as they were then known, had just received their master's degrees in theater from Rutgers University. But as they began looking for acting jobs, it became clear that working in movies, TV, or even on Broadway would mean accepting demeaning roles, drug dealers and deadbeats. Instead, theater, black theater, in the tradition of the Negro Ensemble Company, offered a positive way to explore the black experience.
At that time, we were rebels. We were people who came out of school believing that we could change the world. You have an energy that allows you to see yourself spinning the world with your own hand?
And hence, let's start a theater company. And Rick and Lee led the way. And of course, I was there, I think I was about 19 or 20 years old, saying, me too, I want to do this.
Do theater that spoke to a community, do theater that was immediate, do theater that would get a reaction. We were in this small little loft space back in 1978 where people were so close to us that you could see the beads of sweat on an actor's face, and you knew that the potential of getting a response in that room from people and getting feedback from an audience was incredible.
They started small, under the administrative umbrella of the nearby George Street Playhouse, and funded by a CETA, or Comprehensive Employment and Training Act grant. But just 2 successful years later, Crossroads became independent. There was a full season of plays, and a professional staff was in place. Still, in those days, being a Crossroads company member meant doing whatever needed to be done.
I remember the first year we did a repertory of plays. We did 4 plays in repertory, and like every other night had to change the complete configuration of the theater. And we were boiling over with energy. Show would go down at 11 o'clock. We changed the configuration of the theater to do the next play the next night.
We had 4 people in the audience one day, 3 people in the show. And we just felt that it would be better to just come out and sit with the audience and say, look, this doesn't make any sense. What do you think about coming back? Those were times of great discouragement, but there were also the times of great joy.
For $50 a day, they want Acapulco?
Try giving them the basics. Food, water, shelter. They ain't shipwrecked. They pay in advance for their vacation.
Very funny, but the ad says tours and nightly entertainment.
They really don't know each other that well, primarily because they're spending too much time being master and servant. So what you find in the end is that in order to really deal on a one-to-one level, you have to be honest with each other from the start, regardless of what your relationship is. It can be master and servant, it can be black, white, it can be employer, employee. Okay, but if you're going to have an honest relationship, then you have to deal with each other as people.
I'm getting tired of that,
Oh, what?
Eating out, somebody else is cooking in a club or somewhere. I would like to eat in my own house for a change.
Don't have time to cook, that's all, you know that.
I know, but look at this kitchen. It have everything in it except food.
Crossroads has got to move towards being a household word, an integral part of everybody's lives. We have to get black people to understand that there is something relevant here to their lives, even though it's a professional theater. And we're trying to get the white people to see that it's relevant to them too, even though it's a black theater. So it's in the marketing and it's in promoting the Crossroads mystique, so that people can be as excited about this as they're excited about getting gasoline in their tank or going out to a good restaurant and really enjoying a meal. You don't eat when you have the time, you eat because you have to eat. And the food that Crossroads has to offer is very nourishing.
In the old sewing factory on Memorial Parkway, the dream was becoming a reality. The theater was evolving as a place for actors and directors to practice their craft. Crossroads began by relying on the classics, plays like Ceremonies and Dark Old Men and To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. There were just a handful of new plays, such as then-resident playwright Don Evans' The Trials and Tribulations of Stagger Lee Booker T. Brown.
Stagger Lee Booker T. Brown, the baddest dude in the whole damn town, shot Billy Lyons and took his life, took the money from his pockets, and then took his wife. All right. Sheriff comes with his motley old crew, says, Stanley Brown, don't make a corpse out of you. Shooting a man is bad enough, but taking his wife got some ugly stuff.
By 1988, the mission of the Crossroads Theatre Company squarely included writers. There were 4 premieres that season, and in 1989, there was an unprecedented entire season of new plays. Sheila's Day, Spunk, and Furthermore, Black Eagles, and Todd the Boy Todd. This change can be traced back to 1986 with the premiere of The Colored Museum as part of a CBS New Plays competition.
Hi, I'm Miss Pat, and I'll be serving you here in Cabin A. Now, we'll be flying at an altitude that's pretty high, so shackles must be worn at all times.
I originally wasn't going to submit to Crossroads because I was under the impression at the time that they only did sort of, if you will, revivals of standard black plays. So I didn't think that they would be receptive to this play, Colored Museum, which one of the components of the play was sort of trashing some of those or debunking some of those traditional black plays.
But I said, this is the play, and this is the play for Crossroads now at this time, because we were ready to break from doing revivals to putting our own signature on the work that we did. New plays, new playwrights. And I said, this is the play. I said, it's going to be controversial, okay? And everyone's not going to like it. And some people are going to be appalled by it, but this is the play. The writing was so sharp, was so witty, was so intelligent, was so right on. And you have to realize this predated In Living Color, this predated Spike Lee and his work, this predated this what I call black self-examination movement. It predated all of that. This was 1986.
The Colored Museum moved to New York's Public Theater, and later to the Royal Court in London, and television's great performances.
For a while, I guess for about 2 weeks, I was on cloud nine. I really was on cloud nine, and I had all my reviews. I had them cut out, and I'd read them daily, you know. It's a good feeling to know, it's particularly a good feeling to know that the time that you spent working in the theater pays off in some way, you know. Even if I never get another hit show, the fact that this one has gotten me the kind of attention it's gotten is enough.
The Colored Museum was an incredible breakthrough of a black play in that it was not afraid to just mouth off about all the stereotypes, you know, with some fantastic and devastating language. Clearly, and not even arguably, the landmark production was Colored Museum, which put the theater on the map. I mean, went here, went there. That is the landmark production.
So it was definitely a turning point just in terms of my career, and I think a turning point in many respects in terms of Crossroads, because after that they started doing even more and more new work, which is really exciting and wonderful.
In the beginning, as I was saying, our main thing was about creating good roles for actors. Eventually, we realized that we were running out of plays to do. And it was because we were running out of writers. The writers were not writing for theater anymore. We started to move away into the films, television, or just quit. And if your goal is to move forward and to get other generations to come along and do the same, then you've got to put in place the things that can excite them. And then we started to do new plays because we wanted to keep writers writing so that we can create a new generation of writers who can look and say, ah, yeah, the work is still being done.
Writing is a way of defining history, or redefining history. New plays at Crossroads have explored the African-American past and present. The Rabbit Foot was a play set in rural Mississippi about the Great Migration. Buses was about the Montgomery bus boycott, and Rosa Parks came to see it. And there was Black Eagles, based on the real-life experiences of the first black pilots in World War II. After years of flying support for white pilots, the Black Eagles fought for equality in the skies and won, becoming heroes.
Yesterday, I fulfilled one of my ambitions as a combat pilot. I got one airplane,
two things that I was very passionate about with that play. One was that a lot of the Tuskegee Airmen were still alive today, and I wanted to do something to let people know that they were still here, because they're not going to be here for a long time. And they did come to the show, they were consultants and all of that, and that was wonderful. The other thing I wanted to do was put something forward for young black men, to be able to see that there are heroes, you know, of their same color and the same gender, so that they don't have to go out and destroy each other. Because there have been those who were their fathers and forefathers who once were flyers.
You're talking to eagles here. Black eagles. Well, you're talking to white eagles.
They were men very much like Jackie Robinson, you know, who took a lot in order for others to gain a lot.
It ought to be equal, but it's not equal. It's not equal. It's not equal in that freaking lousy club over there, and it's not equal in the air.
They were bright men, you know. They were intelligent guys. They were daring. They were adventurous. There were men, all of whom became very successful in business.
I want you colored pilots to fly escort protection for the bombers. Close support.
Like many Crossroads productions, Black Eagles traveled. One stop was at the Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., where it played during the peak of the Gulf War, and it was seen by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces.
4 of us, men's night out on the town, went over to Ford's Theater and to see a play called The Black Eagles. And for those who aren't aware of that, it's a play about the Tuskegee Airmen of World War II, who were led by the legendary General Benjamin Davis. An incredible story of men who took their places among a very special group of heroes, Black Americans who have fought for this country for over 200 years. And they never received the credit that they deserve for their devoted patriotism, for their vision and their sacrifices. And America owes a long overdue tribute to these men and women who, long before they had rights, believed in what was right.
The issues that we deal with today, what we see on TV, have gotten so horrid that it brings us back to racial problems we thought we had overcome. You know, we had overcome decades ago. I want to take an urgency to the history books, and I want to rewrite them so that people could be proud of who they are based on where they've come from. But if you really want to destroy a race, the first thing you do is you cut off their root, just like you cut off the roots of a plant. If you want to pull a race back together, you reconnect the root.
Flying West tells another little-known American story of black pioneers, homesteaders staking out all black towns during a time when slavery was still a living memory. Playwright Pearl Cleage uses storytelling as a way of revisiting or revisioning the past.
I'd have given anything to have my babies in my own little house on my own piece of land with James pacing outside, the midwife knowing what to do to ease you through it. Is that too tight? It's perfect. I was only 13 when I got my first one. They wanted me to start early because I was big and strong. So when my
Flying West went on to the Kennedy Center, this time starring Ruby Dee.
Ain't no white people looking to settle in no Nicodemus, Kansas.
Count Stovall played the villain everyone loves to hate, making the play a real melodrama. It was popular with the audiences, but not necessarily with the critics.
This beastly man, this horrible man that of course everybody hated because he was beating his wife and he was just, terrible in other ways too. The old matriarch of the family there decided that, well, obviously the way to get rid of him is our own secret apple pie recipe. And once the audience got wind of that, they cheered her on. I mean, they were just all becoming, I guess it's some kind of vigilante, or, and this man being poisoned was a source of great joy to everybody.
I don't care what you do to me, I'm not gonna let you hurt the baby! Frank, stop! Frank! Frank, stop it!
How we are viewed by the people is not necessarily the same as how we're viewed by the critics. I would say that 95% of the entire critical body of America is made up of white men. It's the same thing in New Jersey. And when you do a play about black women being abused, and you are reviewed primarily by white men, and if that continues to happen, then it affects how you view critical success and critical failure. It makes you realize that ultimately, it's not what the critic thinks, it's what your mother thinks, or it's what the people in the audience, black and white, men and women, think. That's more important, because something's wrong with the makeup of the critical body.
We choose this day to declare our lives to be our own and no one else's. And we promise always to remember the day we left Memphis and went west together to be free women as a sacred bond between us.
That white America does not understand black America. And part of it is because of the images that are being put out in the media, in film and television. It's not showing the variety of black life. It's showing usually just one narrow aspect of it, and that not accurately.
Emily Mann directed and co-wrote Betsy Brown, a musical that premiered at the McCarter Theatre before going on to a new production at Crossroads. Written by Ntozake Shange, best known as the author of For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough, it's a somewhat autobiographical coming-of-age story set in the 1950s.
Daddy says I'm normal and my name is Elizabeth. I like you, Betsy. Where's my books, Betsy? My name is Elizabeth.
It took this community by storm. You could not get a seat at the McCarter Theatre, which is, a huge house. However, I'm one of the few artistic directors who isn't black, who is dedicated to doing black work. And I do a lot of it myself.
I said you best be careful. I stood my ground with pride. I gave that girl a mouthful. I said you best get back, cause you only got 1 minute. You pull that crap on me and I will make you regret it.
We just need to see more and more variety of black experience in America. If we don't, we are going, as a society, to become more and more and more isolated from each other, and that spells disaster, I think. And it is a place like Crossroads that ensures that being an impossibility, because the stories of African and African American people will come out of those theaters, of his theater, and hopefully get into the mainstream, into the consciousness of the people.
was a hat day.
George Wolfe returned to Crossroads after the success of The Colored Museum to direct Spunk, his adaptation of 3 stories by the Harlem Renaissance writer Zora Neale Hurston.
Touch me. I'll holler like a pretty white woman.
She was a phenomenal storyteller, and good theater is, in its essence, good storytelling. She's able to take the ordinary and understand the ritual, the timeless ritual in it. Men and women have been talking trash to each other since day one. Sometimes it's with my lord, and sometimes it's hey baby.
A Rockefeller grant gave Wolfe the chance to take Spunk to any theater he wanted. He chose to take it to Crossroads.
Regional theaters across the country, if they're on that journey of opening themselves up, they're going to do 1 play of color a year. And generally, if they have a large space and a small space, their play of color, with rare exceptions, is going to be in the smaller space. So that therefore there's already a second-class citizenship going on, or let's reach out and touch this community and then ignore them for the rest of the time. So that therefore, whereas you have a theater like Crossroads, which is committed in an ongoing, all-year basis to nurturing that talent pool. You know what I mean? You're a part of their main season. You're a part of what the phenomenon is of what that theater is. And they deal with you accordingly.
I think a damn sight more of him than you. Oh, that's a nice snake.
There are many theaters who give multiculturalism, if you will, I hate that phrase, or that is that they're starting to produce more black work, let's put it that way. A lot of that is lip service. A lot of that is a passing fancy. Unfortunately, in our lifetimes, we will always need a place for black artists to work with each other in a place like Crossroads. I say unfortunately just because I think that we are not going to see the end of racism in our lifetimes.
Crossroads is a place to work, but it's a place for ideas as well. A place where the power of theater is used to deal with issues like AIDS in the black community.
I want us to look at some very dangerous worlds, very dangerous places where this disease lives.
This gentleman walked into the room, and you could tell that he was in his final stages of the virus. People were acting really strange towards him. He wanted to kiss people and hug them, and everybody they couldn't deal with it. And when I saw how people rejected this man, I followed him on campus. And I just watched him from a distance, how he walked, and he spoke to people, and no one would speak to him. And it made me think about the people in my family who were suffering from the same thing and how they must deal with that same rejection.
So they tell their story, who they are, why is AIDS an issue in their life, who are the people in their lives, what is their environment like. It's very stream of consciousness, very just generating material, just generating their story.
And let's have some testimony. Come in and testify. Testify.
I found myself wanting to be emotional, almost like if I could just get it all out, it would be good. My background is from the quote-unquote ghetto. I was exposed to drug abuse, to violence, to drug addicts, to AIDS, to a lot of pain and difficult topics that a young child should not have to deal with. And that was a part of my world, but it's not exclusive to me. A lot of people face that. And the reason why I wanted to participate in this project about AIDS is specifically for that reason, because it was about AIDS. And I've had numerous friends and people in my family who are infected by the disease and who have died from it as well.
Baby, you know, don't you? You know, HIV. Oh, I'm HIV. HIV? I'm HIV. HIV AIDS? HIV positive? No. You gotta be kidding, right?
Ask her questions.
You gotta be kidding.
Ask her questions. Tell me your story. Start from the beginning. Tell me your story. The idea is that it gets into their body, it gets into their flesh. They are truly this character, and everything they utter as this character is right.
If I die, no one's gonna know what I died from. If my hair falls out, I'll just wear a wig.
Get louder, get louder.
If my nails get dark, I'll just put on polish.
Taunter,
And if I
taunter.
lose weight, I'll just say I'm dying. That's all it is. But I don't have AIDS. I'm too good for that. I'm better than AIDS. I'm Mary Stapleton. I'm a badass. Yay! I don't deserve to have
Please. It's really a sharing session. What do you know? I open big doors. I say, what are your prejudices? What are your bigotries? I mean, how do you deal with the issue? What is the language on the street about it? Because that's drama.
In its first decade, Crossroads established itself as a player on the national scene. But the theater fully came of age with a move to the revitalized center of town, to a building owned by the New Brunswick Cultural Center. The over $6 million facility doubled the size of the house from 130 to 264 seats. For the first time, there were real dressing rooms, and it was fully accessible. But all the same, for some, the move was bittersweet.
The old experience was you climbed up those rickety stairs, and I'm sure it probably scared to death a lot of people who were afraid it was a fire trap, and how were they going to get down, how were they going to get up, how were they going to be comfortable. So, like, the amenities were, nil, but the excitement and the rawness of it were exciting and raw. And when a production worked, that was part of the excitement.
Probably the biggest thing that will occur when we move, and it's happening now, is that there'll be a greater pressure. There are less excuses, There will not be a pole in the middle of the stage. When people come into our space, they will not be able to say, my God, look what you did with that horrible obstacle in the middle of the stage. They'll now have to say, my God, look what you did in this space. No excuses, and that's harder.
Now, during intermission, you can browse the gallery, check out the latest publications, or buy a gift, all at shops featuring African American culture. Going to Crossroads is more than just going to the theater. You're buying into a dream as well.
My job is to make people's experience here the best it could possibly be, to make them want to come back again and again and again. And we want everybody to feel like they can come into this space and be comfortable here, and that they're valued, that we want them here, that we need them. We want people to know that we need them to be here. And so the issue is, can they afford to subscribe? And if they can afford to subscribe, then more than likely they will once they get into the theater. And then those people who can't afford, we try to make other opportunities for them to come in. They come in as volunteer ushers. We reach out to groups in the community, the schools and the church groups and seniors. We're kind of a community service.
We're not Broadway, we're not a commercial enterprise, but we're a place that tries to provoke and inspire people to make change in their community, to give meaning to community.
We need everybody to know these stories. We look at ourselves as bridging the gaps between cultures. When people do come, they enjoy it, and color is never an issue. It's just getting them in.
Shout that road! Ha, ha, ha! Shout that road! Ha, ha, ha! Sweat it! Sweat it! Sweat it! Shout! Shout!
Playing it safe with the classics.
Oh, she squats with her back to the enemy, and her magnificence catches the bullet.
Or experimenting with new forms, new plays, new artists.
Sure
sure did. When we stepped out on the stage at Drury Lane, he whispered to his mother, the Queen, "Those aren't the dancing LaSalles. They must be the beautiful LaSalles." A newspaper...
Planning a season means creating a mixture that will appeal to the taste of the audience. And it can make or break a theater.
We need to sell tickets, and we need the type of audience Crossroads has right now. Crossroads has an audience that wants to adventure with us, wants to take those risks with us. Other things that they could see anywhere else. We're in a large metropolitan area that allows people to go, you know, to theater 7 days a week. They could see whatever they want to see. They come here to Crossroads because it's special, so they want to take those risks.
Ntozake Shange has been developing her original brand of poetic theater at Crossroads for years now. The Love Space Demands began as a staged reading and went on to a full production with changes worked out all along the way.
One more time. Here we go again.
The most difficult challenge, I think, was in discovering the other voices that I felt were inherently in the text, but we had to bring that out and identify that in the script.
Say what? Say signature improvise.
It's more beautiful than I thought it would be, and it's bigger in scope than I imagined it, because I've been doing it as a solo artist or as a duet. It's much more intricate and complex than I ever actually thought to myself it would be, but it's very gratifying in that way. There are relatively few, maybe 15, maybe not even 15, maybe 10 regional theaters in the United States that can afford to allow working artists. I mean by this, people who earn their living working in the theater or performing arts in some way, to earn our living with some sense of dignity and with appropriate facilities, with adequate technical support. So Crossroads in that sense is a great oasis.
I prefer men who like to walk, because then we can talk with our eyes or our bodies, or some strange sign will bring us together.
Shange's Resurrection of the Daughter LILIANE explores the relationship between a woman and her therapist, with a dancer representing the woman's unconscious. Actually an excerpt from her novel of the same name, the play was minimally staged and put on as part of the Genesis New Plays Festival. Afterwards, discussions are held, moderated by the Director of Play Development, Sidney Mahone.
Can you expound a little on the transformation that takes place in the course of Lillian's relating back to her childhood, I suppose, and how you came up with that, and what's the effect that you were trying to achieve?
Well, see, there's a whole lot of chapters missing, but that's no excuse for this work tonight. I know that. But I was trying to examine what forces were acting upon middle class or upper middle class black women between World War II and 1959.
4 years ago, I came to my first Genesis festival in the old space, and it was Ntozake Shange's The Love Space Demands. And it was just one of those special evenings in the theater where you know something really incredible is in the midst of being developed.
This is my third play for the Genesis for this season. I just think it's great. And I really enjoyed Ruby Dee. Oh, she's just marvelous.
I interpret. I'm what you might call a word monger, mouth monger, phrase flinger, slang slinger, sonnet framer, tongue tamer, a brain pouncing bull bouncer, book duster, verb buster, noun nipper, lip flipper, language walker, turkey talker. Yes, 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 I confess.
I'm in the books with legs mode, presenting books, much like you present a painter, hoping to learn more about the author, you know, the rhythms, the style of the individual writers, because I believe they are as distinctive as painters and musicians. Now I'm presenting a book that I wrote because I'm a poet, and I have a book, several books. I decided, well, I'll do my own work this
for this Genesis. See what I can make of it. Crossroads offers this marvelous venue to work out. The South came to mean thick milk, remember that? And bitter greens, and great big old biscuits, ham and sweet peaches and flies, heat. My grandmother teaching me how to quilt.
We were here this past Sunday, and you know we must love it if we're back here on Wednesday.
We get to see new plays in their rawest form and to see the production in its first steps and to get some input from the audience as to what it might become.
Let me ask you. You think it was some of that Darwin shit? You know, evolution by natural fitness? Shit, no. It was evolution by natural hipness. And every little ape went ape, shouting, "Mercy, mercy!" Check out the way he do that thing.
I have not applauded a single time because I am outraged. And I'm outraged for all of you because I read a quote recently, "A society which has lost its ability to be outraged is lost." Please clean up the language. Please clean up the language.
I really appreciate your position. I'm very sympathetic to it, and I must say the following response. This is not an original work. This is a classic.
He choked to death on his caviar.
It was a condemnation of society at the time, and it proposes to be a condemnation of society today.
I think it is important to hear the various opinions and responses that people have to the work, and to not feel that we have to solve anything, but to simply hear what people think.
We can create great messes, you know, mixing stuff. But sometimes we create great art. Not all the time. But it's never, ever possible if there weren't that audience or that community that says, go ahead and mix them up. You know, we don't know how it's going to turn out, but we're with you.
And that's when you become able to create great work, is if you know that it's dangerous enough it could be a disaster. And if it is, that's okay, and then you go in the next direction, the next one, and the next one, the next one will be magnificent. That's what Crossroads offers, just that incredible freedom and support and love in order to be in an environment to be safe enough to create that exciting new work. Without Crossroads, we're not going to see that breakthrough work.
They are like the little leagues to baseball. They're the little leagues of what's going to happen to us in the future, our future in the theater and film and in television. I think people need a place to nourish their talent, to grow and to experiment.
Two ha-has and a homeboy brought Ossie Davis, Ruby Dee, and son Guy Davis together in a work written by Miss Dee.
To the once upon a time people.
Once upon a time was a good old time. The monkey chewed tobacco and he spit white line. Uncle Bud, big cat, little cat, teen-eyed kitten, I'ma kill that little if you don't stop.
Hold it!
You got to clean that up to bring it in here.
Well, from the looks of the distinguished gentlemen and ladies here assembled, we won't have to clean it up much.
Telltale Hearts starred actress Pam Grier.
I got it. For my dream man, I'll gladly accept an unemployed, fat, bald, divorced, old ex-con living with his mama and two sisters in a trailer on welfare. Near Newark. You're getting there, girl. You're getting there.
Spunk featured one-time Saturday Night Live member Denitra Vance, showcasing the late actress's comic genius.
Ain't nobody gonna be pimping on me, you dig me?
Oh, no, baby.
Oh, I've seen you two mullet heads before. I was uptown when Joe Brown had you all to go long last night. Woo! That top show hates a pimp. All he needs to see is the pimp salute. And he will ship your head to the red. Ooh, knock it as flat as a dime.
Actors come from Hollywood, not just for the new works, but for plays that are part of the emerging black canon as well. Home, written by Sam Art Williams, challenged Tony Todd to a non-stop performance in front of a live audience every night.
I love the land. I love its ramps. I ain't never gonna leave it, Uncle Lewis. I want to be a farmer just like you and Grant. No, a lawyer, a school teacher's what you be. No, me and Franny, we ain't never gonna leave.
You know that a lot of very important artists come to Crossroads and see Crossroads as a laboratory space. I'm saying all the good things, but the challenge right now is that unless we get those artists who have now gone to Hollywood, because it was very difficult to survive in the theater, to come back and help support the theater company, it's going to be very difficult for us to maintain a thriving theater community. We're doing a lot of good things, but we're doing them on wings and prayers because it's an impossible dream. It's sort of like looking out across the ocean and saying, I don't think we can make it in this boat, but I really want to see if we can. And it's not until day 30 and the boat has been leaking steadily for 30 days that you go, is this what it's going to be for the rest of the trip? But the sun comes out every now and then you see what it is that you really believe in. And for example, we went to South Africa with Sheila's day. And that was an experience that I probably would have cut an arm off for, because I got a chance to see something that I had invested a lot of time and energy into, really making a difference in people's lives.
The journey of Sheila's Day started in a workshop production back in 1987, with South African and American women sharing their stories and songs. Writer Duma Ndlovu and director Mbongeni Ngema then began to fit the pieces together.
After I had listened to all the stories, the first day, then I went home with that pile of stories and tried to make a text out of it, you know, with a beginning and ending, and middle and ending. It's, you know, everyone was throwing something into the pot.
From this process emerged the parallel stories of two ordinary women, both domestic workers, maids, one living in South Africa under apartheid, the other in the American South during the bloody ending of Jim Crow.
The stories that I brought in were my mother's stories about being a maid and some of the degradation, the atrocities that she had to deal with. Just being at the whim of your employer and then being treated as though they're doing you some kind of a favor. So when these stories started coming out in the South African stories, they were all the same. One of the first lines, I say my mother's name. She had this really long name.
My name is Mary Ruby Lee Thomas Johnson. Yes. I was born in Marion, Alabama.
I can't help but smile because I'm getting an opportunity to tell some stories that otherwise would never be told. And she just lives on in those stories.
Well, I guess you know I was never called back to work at that Woolworth, even after they integrated that large county. I was a tree planted by the water. We shall
We are a society, and it does not matter where we come from. We are a society of storytellers. That is how history was passed on. Our emotions run really high when we sing, because the music is not just put in for the sake of singing. It is a continuation of that storytelling.
Half of the cast of Sheila's Day came from South Africa, and half of the cast came from America. And we can complain all we want about the division that was created, the disconnection through the Middle Passage when black people were brought here. I was interested in reconnecting. And what was really wonderful was that while I was as passionate about reconnecting, so were people in South Africa interested in reconnecting with us. So Sheila's Day was an opportunity for people to come back together.
Oh boy, it's a dream come true. I remember when we started with the piece, we always said the journey won't be finished until we go to South Africa.
South Africa, London, Atlanta, New York. Whether out of town or at home in New Brunswick, the heart of the Crossroads Theatre Company is Ricardo Khan, founding member, artistic director, and main believer. And what he's been saying has only gotten stronger over the years. It has a beat that goes something like this. Examine your values. Don't play it safe. Live up to your dreams.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, it was about trying to change the world. But it was really, really about wanting to be a part of a world that turns with you in it, not with you on the side, not turning to try to get you off of its, off of its surface, but a world that turns to celebrate you, the human spirit. That's all we're about.
Ricardo Khan is this guy's incredible. This guy is incredible. If there is someone who defines visionary, Rick is a visionary.
It's certainly a major black theater, probably the major one in the country. But I don't think Rick is ruled by a sort of commercial thing. I mean, I think he's interested in enlightening, maybe even more than entertaining, if I could put one over the other.
African American theater, I think, if there is something you can say about it versus mainstream theater, it is a theater of urgency. It doesn't mean that what is urgent is the need to talk about the bad things, but to also talk about the good things is an urgent matter. The family, home, the fact that we too also wash our cars on Saturdays in our driveways, or that we love, or that we meet people in singles bars, or what, we do all of those things too. And if you're not fighting to put your views on the table, then maybe you're accepted for all of who you are. That does happen within the four walls of Crossroads, because we celebrate all of who we are.
In the words of Langston Hughes, hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is like a winged bird that cannot fly. God bless you all.
This special State of the Arts production was made possible by the New Jersey State Council on the Arts. The State Council on the Arts, supporting artistic excellence in New Jersey since 1966.